Hi, my name is Dale Mazzarella. I'm a Fly Fishers International Master Casting Instructor, a longtime Wyoming fishing guide, and an award-winning coach and educator. I've put together this video series that I hope will help you become a better fisherman, catch a lot more fish, and I hope you enjoy it. So enjoy yourself, have a good time, and let me know what you think. Let's talk about knots. You know, there are some people who just love tying knots, and if you're one of those people, hey, have at it. There's a ton of different knots you can use. I use 7 knots. I keep it very simple. 7 knots I've used to catch rooster fish, tarpon, tiny trout, just about everything in between. So there are some knots that this is just going to be those 7 knots. There are a lot of knots you could use that are marginally better in some situations, but these knots will get you by no matter what. If you're like me, I have a really hard time learning how to tie a knot out of a book, just looking at the diagrams. So I'm going to try a little different way. And if you could send me a note if you think this is a better way, that's great. Please let me know so I can keep doing it. If I get enough posts that say it's not a better way, then I'd like to stop doing it that way. So let's talk about the 7 knots that I use that will take care of you in 99% of the situations that you're going to find yourself in. And again, they may not be the absolute best knots, and you're going to have a lot of people tell you, oh, this knot's better, this knot's better. There are some better knots for specific kinds of situations, but these knots will always work. So let's talk about them. The first one is an arbor knot. The arbor knot is used to tie your backing to your reel. So we're going to discuss that one. The second one is your nail knot, and that's what I tie my backing to my fly line and my leader to my fly line. So I use a nail knot for those. And again, there are other knots that might be better, but I'm telling you, I pulled my boat, my flats boat, with an anchor down against the current and the wind when I've hooked a dock, and I pulled my whole boat, dragging it through the mud with those knots. So you know, I just don't think you need, in 99% of situations, a better knot than a nail knot for those 2 applications. The next one is a blood knot. I use a blood knot more than I do a surgeon's knot, but I'm also going to show you the surgeon's knot. The blood knot I use to tie leader to leader, leader to tippet, and there's a really good reason to know the blood knot if you can, and I'll show you why. As a guide, I use the blood knot a lot. I know a lot of people who don't even know the blood knot and get by with nothing but the surgeon's knot, the double surgeons or the triple surgeons, which will show you. And again, that knot, the surgeon's knot, is used to tie leader to leader and tippet to leader. A good knot, I don't tie it for one reason you'll see in a minute. The next one is a non-slip loop knot. I use that a lot for my bigger streamers, bigger nymphs. It's a knot that's tested out as one of the most powerful, strongest knot you can use. It's up in the high 90s in terms of percentage of strength of the line. It's a good knot, so I use that quite a bit, and I use it a lot when I'm streamer fishing, saltwater fishing, and so on. The next one is an improved clinch knot, which is probably the most common knot on the planet. I use that a lot, and there's some argument about whether you need to either improve it or not, but I improve it just because I was taught that way. And again, there are tons of other knots to attach a fly to the tippet, which is the purpose of your non-slip loop knot and your improved clinch knot. The last one I teach is a perfection loop. And the reason I teach a perfection loop is because an awful lot of people now are using a loop-to-loop connections for their leader to their fly line, and also there's other applications for a loop. So you should know a perfection loop, because it's a strong knot that helps you tie loops to loop. So those are the knots. Now we're going to try to show you those knots in the best, simplest way we can, and hopefully this will be helpful for you to learn these knots. And if you know other knots and you like other knots, please do not think that this is the end-all of knots. I'm just not into a lot of knots. I used to climb quite a bit. You know, I've climbed El Cap and a lot of other serious mountain and cliff climbing. And my first mentor, Peter Croft, is a world-class climber. He told me, Dale, never learn a knot. You can't tie in the dark when you're tired and your hands are cold. And that's kind of been my philosophy as far as fishing, although there's certainly a difference between a fishing knot that fails and a knot that fails when you're hanging 2,000 feet off the ground. But in any case, it's the same basic philosophy. I want to be able to tie a knot when I'm freezing cold, when I'm tired, and when the light is really low. I can count on that knot to hold. Let's talk about an arbor knot first. We're going to play like this bottle of water is a reel because that's a little easier to use sitting on a table, and I'm going to use its weight. Then all you do is you put this is our tag end, this right here, this one right here is our, that's our backing. So we're going to take it, we're going to put it, it doesn't matter whether you go over or under, it doesn't make any difference at this point. And all you're going to do is get to the position, you're just going to go over and put an overhand knot in your tag end. So this is what the situation you should be looking at right here. So I hope you can see that. So this is what it looks like. At that point right here, you've got a tag end. Your tag end has an overhand knot in it. Then all you have to do is now tie another overhand knot in the end of your tag end, right here, and tighten it up like that. That's it. Now all we do is clinch it up, and with this it doesn't slip quite as good as it would if it was a regular, but just keep pulling on it and you're going to see it gets tighter and tighter. And what happens is that, there we go. Okay, that second little overhand knot you had, this one right here, if you can see that second overhand knot is what keeps the line from slipping through. And then just tighten it down, cinch it up really tight, and now you've got now you can tie on your backing without it slipping, and it's pretty darn strong. So besides, if you get to this point when you're catching a fish, you probably are in trouble anyway. So there we go, that's an arbor knot. First thing you're going to need is a nail knot tool, and there are various types of tools on the market. I like this, it's the simplest one. Only costs about $4 or $5. It doesn't take up much room, it's light, and you can certainly do a good nail knot with this one. Now we've got backing here. This is our tag end of our backing, and this is our fly line. So we're going to attach our backing to our fly line. So what we're going to do, we're going to put a tag end. Don't cheat yourself here, make sure you got enough that you can do this pretty easily. You're going to put your backing through that little groove, and you can probably see that little groove. Now 5 times around, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times around. You can go 6 if you want on backing. Sometimes I'll go 6 times around. So you're right here. Now what you do, you've got this situation here, and you can see I hold my finger like that to keep it from slipping. And if you've got a tippet and you've got a butt section you're trying to put on here, instead of backing, and if you used any kind of floating, this is going to be kind of hard. It'll slide off, so keep your hands nice and clean. Now what you do is you take your tag in and you go from the back. We're going to go from the back through. Sometimes it's a little tricky because this stuff there we go. So now we're back through and we're here. This is the situation we're in at this point. So we've gone back through here, so our backing is this way, our tag end is here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our piece of fly line, the tip of our fly line, and we're going to stick it back through the opposite way we stuck the other one. Right there. So now I got to get this out. There we go. So I'm right here. So now I've got this backing here, and I've got the fly line there. And you can kind of stick it out if you want to. Now there's a couple different philosophies. Some people put this in their mouth and this in their hand, they just yank it off and pull it. You certainly can try that. Another way that I found pretty easy to do oftentimes is just pull it off nice and neat with your fingers trapped. Then I pull this end, pull this end, pull this end, pull this end, and you can feel it sort of tighten underneath your hand. When you get down pretty good, now you can just pull both. Just like that. Now, look what's happened. I've got this perfect little knot right there. Now, pull tight. Pull tight both ends of the backing. Pull that tight. Then check and make sure you're good by pulling your fly line in your backing, because this is the true test right here. If that holds, remember this is 20-pound backing. So for all but the very biggest fish, that's going to work. You can also use 15, and of course for huge fish you might want to use 30, but seldom are you going to use more than that. So now I've got this. Now all you do is trim it very neatly. Trim off both ends. And if you want to put a little UV glue on there or something, that's fine. But what you want is this knot like this. Now you'll notice, see this little tag? I've got a little tag sticking out right here. I'm going to try to trim that off. And the reason I'm going to trim that off is because that will cause problems as this line goes through your guides, if that ever happens. So when you get into your backing sometimes, that's an issue. So you should be able to tag this, pull this, there we go. Now there is no tag end on that. That's what you want. And that should hold. I've pulled boats with this knot. So, I mean, can't break. The first thing that'll break, obviously the knot will break first, but there's no way. I mean, I've caught, like I've said, tarpon and all kinds of fish on this knot. And rooster fish in Baja, 40-pound jacks. That's a strong knot. So there you go. That's a really nice, neat knot that goes back and forth through your guides very easily. We're going to do a surgeon's knot. This is my tippet and this is my leader. And these are the two tag ends that I need. And don't cheat yourself on these tag ends. You're going to need those two tag ends. Now what you do is you overlap the tag ends of the two. The leader is the orange one and this is the tippet. You're going to overlap them like this. Then what you're going to do, what I do, is at this point here, I reach through and put my hand like that so I can create this kind of a knot or this kind of a loop. So I basically just created this kind of a loop right here. Then I reach through and grab the leader and the tag end of the, I reach through and grab the tippet and the tag end of the leader. Then what I do is I've got to do a second one. This is a double surgeon, so I reach through and do it again. So now I've got a configuration that looks like this. That's my configuration at this point. So I've got my two tag ends sticking out, and you can do a third one if you wanted. That would be a triple surgeons. Now you're going to pull it, and you should have a nice neat knot that looks like this. Make sure you salivate on it, pull your two tag ends, make sure it's good and tight, pull your loop, your tippet on the right and your leader on the left, pull it tight, and you've got a nice, neat knot. Now, what you do is you need to clip it here and leave a little bit of a tag end and clip it here. So clip off your tag ends, but leave just a little bit on each one. And the reason you do that is because this knot does slip a little bit. It tends to slip a tiny bit. You can also use a triple surgeons like we talked about. Just make one more loop through. So there you go. That knot's a good knot. I do it a lot when it's windy. I do it when it's cold. I do it when I'm tired. It's an easier knot to tie than the blood knot, which we're going to do next. So we're going to do a blood knot. Here I've got two tag ends. I've got my tippet over here and my leader right there. And I'm going to take my tippet, and again, you're looking at it from behind me, so it should be pretty easy for you to do it while you're sitting there at your table. So you're going to take your right hand and put it over your left, so the green one goes over the orange one. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your green one and you're going to should go 5 times around. We're only going to go 3 because of the issues with this big huge line, but you should have 5 wraps. So once you put this over, it's 1, 2, 3, and then you go 4 and 5. But I'm just going to stop at 3. So now I pinch it with this hand. So all those wraps in there are pinched between my thumb and my forefinger right in there. Now you're going to take your tag end, the orange line, which is hooked onto your leader. That tag end is going to go behind your tippet tag all the way around. So now I'm going to go behind it and around it all the way to the front like this, and then pinch the whole thing. So it's gone around and I pinched it. Now grab your tippet and 5 times around this way. And again, I'm only going to go a couple of times. Now you're going now this way. Again, you're going 5 times around the back, pull it towards the front, around the back, pull it towards the front. Now take your tag end and stick it through the same loop that your other tag end is coming through. So you've got 2 tag ends that are coming at different, one's going to the right and one's going to the left. Now I'm going to stand up because my next step, I always grab this with my teeth, so I'm actually going to show that because it's so much easier. So I'm going to stand up, turn around and show you how I do this. So I've got this here. Now what I'm going to do is grab both tag ends with my teeth, salivate on it, and once I get it to here, this is the situation you should be in. Now tighten it up, cinch it down, and you should have, if you've done this right, the two tag ends are going to come off at right angles to each other. So you can see the two tag ends are coming off at right angles to each other. So it's going to look like this. And you've got a nice, neat knot that's really super strong. Now this one, you can clip it all the way down, right down to you don't have to have any tags left at all. That's a super strong knot. The beauty of this is, if I had a bunch of nymphs and stuff on this line and I wanted to shorten my tippet a little bit, or I want to shorten my fly line someplace in between, if you're doing a surgeon's knot, you can't really do that, because when you're trying to get all these loops through each other, all this junk gets caught in a knot. This one, all you need is two little tag ends. The other advantage of this knot is that knot takes very little material. For me as a guide, I might tie 30 knots a day. 30 knots a day times an extra 8 or 10 inches, it costs me a little bit of money, and it's pretty wasteful. So what I like the blood knot, it's neater, it's usually stronger, it's cleaner, it doesn't grab anything. The problem is it's a little harder to tie, a little more complicated. Now we're going to do what I call a non-slip loop knot. It's been called a number of different names, but I'm going to have just a second, I'll have what is going to represent the hook eye here. But right now, the first thing you do is you take your tag end of your tippet and you put an overhand loop in it. So that's the first thing you're going to do, is that. So that's the first thing you're going to do. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to play like this is a big old giant hook eye, eye on a hook. You're going to bring it back through, so you're here. So you're actually going to bring it back through the eye of the hook. And then you're going to bring this back through here. So now you're in this position right here. Now you can adjust the side. This is going to be a loop right here that doesn't slip. And this, by the way, is a super strong knot. So now you can adjust it, either make it smaller or make it bigger. So you can make this loop however big you want. I try to make it a little bit smaller. So mine is usually like this. So now when you get to this point here, you're going to pinch this stuff here. So you've got, you notice you have two strands on top and two strands on the bottom. Pinch it. Now go around it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And then 3 times around, you come right back through. Make sure I separate these out so you can see them. You come right back through. Remember, you had 2 on the bottom and 2 on top. You're going to go right back through here. So now you're going to take your tag end 3 times around and come right back through your 2 loops on the top. You can see the 2 loops here and the 2 loops there. Now you can pull it again. I would probably grab it with my teeth right here and cinch it up. But in any case, what you're going to have when you get done is you're going to have a non-slip loop knot. That is one of the strongest knots you can tie. Probably cinch it all down, make it nice and neat, and then pull on that tag end pretty hard with your teeth. So that's their knot. Now you can see that's about 95 to 98% as strong as the line, which is one of the very strongest knots you can get. It doesn't look like much, but it's super strong. I use that for nymphs, big nymphs, streamers. It's a great little knot. I'm not sure it really, a lot of people say, well, let's this thing flow, the fly flow or drift more naturally. But if you're stripping it, there's tension on it anyway. So I'm not sure that's the case. I use it because it's fast, it's simple, and it's super strong. I use it especially for streamers. So this is the improved clinch knot. This is my hook eye. This is my tag end of my tippet. I go through the hook eye. This is probably the most common knot ever taught and probably mostly used. And then pinch it right here. Pinch it just as it goes through your hook eye, pinch it. Now go around 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to go 4, but you'd want to go 6 because of this big fat stuff. It won't do very well. So you're going to get 6. Now what you do is you take your tag end and you're going to go back through that little loop that you pinched. Remember, you pinched that loop to start with, so now you're going to go back through that little loop. Now if you don't want to improve it, you can just tighten it up here and improve. And by the way, there's some people who believe it's just as tight unimproved as it is improved, but I've just learned to do the improved clinch knot when I was little, and I've just always done it. So now you're going to take your tag end and you're going to fold it back under, and you're going to go back through that loop right here. So you've gone through this loop next to your eye. So you've gone through that loop, and now you got this big loop here. It was caused when you brought your tag end back through the eye loop. So now you're going to go back through it, grab it, pull on it, tighten it up, and it should slip all the way down to your, may not do it with this kind of material, there we go. It's going to slip all the way down. Now make sure you tighten it up. Make sure you get it nice and tight, pull both ends and tighten it hard, and there you go. There is your, and that's what it should look like. You can see how nice and neat that is. That's your improved clinch knot. And that's pretty good. It's only about 88 or 89, depends on who's studying it, but it's pretty solid knot. And I use that pretty often just because it's the one I first learned, and again, I've caught an awful lot of big, nice fish on that knot, so that's a pretty good knot. There we go, the improved clinch knot. Okay, we're going to tie a perfection loop, and the reason you learn to tie this is if you're going to tie a loop-to-loop connection. And it's a super strong, it's a good knot, it works really well for a lot of purposes. So I've got my tag end right here. Let's say this is a leader and I want to tie a perfection loop in my leader so I can get it onto my fly line with its loop. I'm going to take this and I'm just going to curl it under. So this is how I do it. I curl it under just like that. So I just take this thing and rotate it under, so I've got a loop right here. Now what I do is I make another loop on top right there. So I just take another loop and wrap it right around there, so it's right here. Then I just keep going around with this line. So when I've made that loop, I just go all the way around and hold it right here with my finger. So this, you can see how I grab this right here. So now I reach through the first loop I made and I grab this one. I grab that second loop I made and I pull it tight right here. So there's my perfection loop. Now if you've done this right, you might be able to see this. We'll try to zoom in on it, but if you've done it right, you should have two, you should see the two lines the way they come through there, plus your tag should be off at almost a right angle.